Can I ask you for
Please, anything.
a deeper understanding of the story that I've been struggling with from the Parsha?
Wow, let's do it.
So, Vatzaber Miriam Aharon, and then Miriam, the woman that becomes Mishrat. So Aaron seems like a cleaner of a Teflon man. The fate doesn't stick to him. Is this a question?
He's not answering. I don't know if he's here. Yes. All right. So
why doesn't Aaron get also tzaddik if he spoke? Was it Vatzaber Miriam, not
I don't know. All I know is that there's a word piton. Piton. Let's put the Bamidbar. Hashem comes to Aaron and Miriam, piton, without any warning. No, I need more than normal type. There's a Dalit. No, Dalit's missing there. What about there? Is that a Dalit? Okay. So Bahalatcha. Okay, Piton, El Moshe, Vel Aaron, Vel Miriam, all three of them. Before that, but Tidaber Miriam Aaron, singular verb, but Miriam and Aaron both speaking, and Miriam's put first. B'Moshe, and the whole thing is, who's this woman? Who are they referring to? Are they referring to Tzipporah, or to another woman? And it's not so simple. Last year I did a whole thing on this. It didn't go in deep enough for me to be able to say it Bapeh, but it's very interesting who the Isha Kushit is. So they said, only Moshe Hashem speaks to? Doesn't he speak to us too? And Hashem heard. And so there's the verse now that says, Moshe, he was like very humble, more than any other man on the face of the planet. It could have left that out, but it had to put it in, because the next verse is really, in a sense, Vayishma Hashem. Hashem heard Miriam and Aaron speaking. So if we'd skip over the Moshe Anav, it says Vayomer Hashem Pitom El Moshe Vel Aharon Vel Miriam. Hashem spoke surprise. It was a surprise visit. Pitom means without warning. In the Aramaic, it says bitkaf, tekif. Interesting word, tekif, in Hebrew. So Hashem spoke to them, and where were they? Rashi tells us. Each one was, Miriam and Aaron were both in bed with their respective partners. Nigla lehem pitom, he revealed himself without warning. Vehem tmeim b'derech eretz, they were having relations with their respective spouses, Aaron and Miriam. And Moshe wasn't. Moshe had separated from his wife. The symbolic meaning of separating from one's wife is separating from one's body. One cannot be in a regular marriage situation if he's in the position of Moshe. Moshe has to be called in any second. So what Hashem is teaching them here is, yes, I do speak to you as well, but I want you to know, even though Moshe doesn't doesn't lord it over anybody because of the level that he has attained. Because he's so anab. But I want you to know who he is. He's the one who I really have connected with here, and through him to everybody else. So he teaches them this by coming to them when they're in an inappropriate moment. Even though, of course, for us, the bedroom is the holy of holies of our homes. The place where we eat our food is the mizbeach, but the bedroom is the holy of holies. So it's not to say that that's not true. But in terms of the type of nevuah that we're speaking about here, it's out of body, and it's therefore out of physicality. And therefore physicality, if you're involved in physicality, even to the extent of being in relations with your wife, which is totally Jewish, but the level of communication that I have with Moshe, he just can't do that. And therefore, you have to see the difference between you and him. And they were saying, water, bring water, we got to wash ourselves. And it was lehodiam, it was to make known to them, Moshe, that Moshe did the right thing. She pirash minaisha, that he separated from his wife. Because the Shekhinah was constantly being revealed to him. And since there's no set time, so he had to be ready at any moment. That's the Rashi. You can build on that, just the whole idea. But again, so Aaron was getting taught a lesson, for sure. But it's not. But when the cloud came down on all three of them, Hashem said to them, listen to my words. Your prophecies are not like the prophecy of Moshe. To you I appear in vision and in dream. Not so my servant Moshe. In all of my house he is faithful. Mouth to mouth do I speak with him. He does not see visions. It's not that he can't see visions. He can also see visions, but he's at the higher level. And I don't speak with him in parables. He sees what I show him. Why haven't you been more circumspect in speaking about my servant Moshe? Hashem heated up, so to speak, against them. Very interesting language. It's very anthropomorphic, obviously. He became very heatedly angry at them and went. V'ha'anan sar, and the cloud lifted up, me'al ha'ohel, above the tent, v'hine Miriam atzorat. So does anybody answer your question? I wonder. You looked?
Just look at it.
Mm-hmm. Well, with quick look, I wouldn't be able to. Let's see if Yonatan says anything. Miriam lakat b'tzur'a be'estakel Aharon levat me'imah. Aaron looked at Miriam, veha lakat b'tzur'a, she was struck with leprosy, or what we call nowadays. Ve'amar Aharon, and Aaron said to Moshe, B'matu minach, please, my master, Riboni, my master, la tishaveh alana chova. Don't put such a heavy guilt on us. Di itapashna v'di sarachna. Asher no'alnu v'asher, we really made a mistake and we're sorry. V'amar b'bal minach, please, we beseech you, la teheveh Miriam ahatan, don't let our sister Miriam be leprous like a dead person. Hi, how have you been? Wow, amazing. How's it, Sahal?
It's fine. Just finished training.
Wow. When did I see you last? A month already?
More than a month.
More than a month?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. No immediate answer, but definitely, I was learning at Shavuos that the Torah, the Ari is saying that there's 5 levels of Torah: Shat, Remez, Drosh, Sod, and Raz. Just instead of just saying Sod, he goes one up and saying that we have to know this. The Torah of Gan Eden, the Torah of the first tablets, what it would have been, what the world would have been like if we hadn't done the Chet of the Ego. And he just gives us more of an interdimensional idea of what the Torah is, and that the essence Torah is much, much more sublime than we know. And then the question he asks is, well, how can it say in it that the ox gores the ox, and that all these things that are physical? So he says at those higher levels, in every dimension, the Torah is the same Torah, but it's read in a different way. And he says, knowing that is so important, that we're interdimensional beings, and even when we do something here in the physical world, and we're just physical, our effect resonates above. And it's so important that we understand that when we are interacting with the Torah and with the mitzvot, that what we're doing is multidimensional. The light behind the vessel. So, and that includes the stories. So the stories are really a physical world, this world narrative, and it happened, but the Torah is only using that to give over other information. To make that more understandable, there's a thing we do on Shavuot night called Tikkun Leil Shavuot. Did you do it, or did you hear about it? Did you hear about it?
Mm-hmm.
Did you do it? No. Do you know what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Basically.
Yeah.
Did you do it?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do?
Mm-hmm.
You learned.
Yeah.
I have to tell you the story of the Gaon of Vilna and the market of Dubna. But first of all, the tikkun is the first 3 or 4 verses of every parsha, and the last 3 or 4 verses, unless it's something germane to Shavuot, in which case you read more, like all of Parashat Yitro. Whatever. There's the end of Parashat Mishpatim. There's all of our Parashat Beit Hanan, where the 10 Commandments, the whole thing is described. So that's going to be in the Tikkun. But otherwise, it's 3 or 4 verses, the beginning, 3 or 4 verses at the end of every parsha, and then of course 3 or 4 verses at the beginning and then of every sefer, of every book of the Tanakh. I'm getting to a point, so bear with me. So. So it's usually called the Kad Sifrei Tanakh, the 24. Kad, Chaf, Dalet, 24 books of the Bible. And the Zohar calls them, and the Ari calls them the Kad Kishutei Kala, the 24 ornaments of the bride. And the story that the Zohar tells is that that we're getting the clothes ready for the Shekhinah, so that in the morning, when she goes to the mikveh before getting married under the chuppah, we go with her. And that's why it's a special thing on Shavuos night, even if you've gone into the mikveh during the prior day, but you go into the mikveh at dawn, not dawn, at Alut HaShachar, around 4 o'clock, and or even a little bit before, and you're going to the mikveh. That Bina, the mother of the king, has a treasure house that she goes into, which is Chochmah, and she brings out jewels and clothing for her son, which is called Zeir Anpin, and she also brings out stuff for her daughter-in-law to be, which is Malchut, Shechina, and she prepares a mikveh for her daughter-in-law to go into. It's a scene. It's an actual. I have it here. The Zohar presents a a melodrama of characters. It has nothing to do with God being more than one. God is one. But the story is that before they get married, the queen prepares certain things, and we, who are called the shushbinim, the bridesmaids, we're basically getting ready the clothing that the bride's going to wear under the chuppah. And when we stand under the chuppah with her shachrit, and then for the chazarah of shachrit, and then the reading of the Torah itself, and the reading of the haftarah, and then musaf, it's like we get something. The whole 50 days comes to completion. So if you boil it down to the simplest terms, what is this referring to? The 24 books of the Bible are called the 24 ornaments of the bride, and that we said the bride is the Shekhinah. So simple definition of the Shekhinah is the indwelling presence of God. Simple definition of the Bible is the interrelationship of God and human beings, especially special human beings, but by extension all humanity. The Bible is about the interrelationship, or the interaction between. It's a narrative with all kinds of laws and everything, and stories and everything, but it's about the relationship of God to mankind. If you boil it down even more, it's about people. So when the Shekhinah, which is the divine presence, which is the indwelling presence of God in the world, dresses up in the Tanakh, it means that she is dressing up in the stories of the lives of human beings. We are dressing God in the stories of the lives of human beings, and God is dressing up in the stories of the lives of human beings. And by extension, our lives. So when you boil it down, we're learning Torah, especially on the night of the giving of the Torah, and then by extension, always. When we're learning Torah, we're revealing God's presence and the revelation of godliness in the lives of human beings and in our own lives. Did I say anything that doesn't flow logically? I mean, I'm not into logic, but I'm into making what I call boiling it down to its essentials. If this is so Hashem is dressed up in our lives. And the only reason that the stories of the Tanakh are there, and they're so important because they're archetypal stories, because they're bigger than us. That Yaakov and Rachel and Leah and Avram and Sarah and Adam and Hava and David and Moshe and Yosef, they were privileged to play cosmic roles in God's drama. And when we connect to them, we become also players in Hashem's cosmic drama. The time we're living in, what has happened in each one of our lives to make us who we are. We are a living Torah. Each one of us and all of us together are one incredible Torah. So it's certainly not limited to Shavuot. But we have to have one day a year when we actually do it. So we play out the play. So based on that and what I said about the Ari tells us that behind the stories are higher dimensional things that are revealing to us things about our lives. So that's why Torah exegesis, Torah commentary can be so different in every generation, or different in every Beit Midrash. There can be the Pshat, and there can be the Remez, and there can be the Drush, and there can be the Sod, and there can be deeper and deeper and deeper, because our souls need to be able to connect to all those different levels. That's more or less what I wanted to say. Whatever, if you want to talk about it more, in the sense, it's meditation. asking Hashem to help us to understand ourselves through His Torah. So when I see a story that I don't understand, I actually basically think, I actually already know that I don't understand any of the stories. So I'm willing to take whatever I can get. And I still have questions, but I understand that the Torah is much, much more than I don't want to box it. So I like answers, and it's really important to look and to find and to go here and to go there. But it's an intuitive process over years. Not an intellectual. So in one of my books, I give an example of a master actor. I'll end with this. He's a ship's captain. He wears the clothes of a ship's captain. He's out to sea. The whole story. Picture the same master actor as a musician, an orchestra leader, a doctor, an athlete. In each instance, the costume changes, yet the actor behind the costume is the same. And maybe he too is not the same, for with every new role that he plays, it adds to his understanding of the potential that he has to play many more roles. That's the actor. Picture a necklace made of pearls or some other beautiful stones or material. Altogether, they constitute one necklace. Look into each stone, each pearl, almost in, you can kind of a crystal ball. Each stone and each pearl contains an entire story, an entire movie, an entire lifetime. A captain, a musician, an orchestra leader, a doctor, an athlete. See that the string that binds these different characters and their stories, that's the master actor. And the pearls are the parts that he has played. Now understand that the master actor is your soul. You have played many, many roles. Who are you? Who's the real you? The soul. Have you gained or lost? You have lost, because each lifetime involves suffering a temporary loss of true identity, because you had to limit yourself to become each individual role. But you've gained immeasurably, because each role you played, each lifetime you lived, you revealed something more of yourself to yourself. So we learn from this that although each of us has played many roles in many lifetimes, we can still consider ourselves one soul. We can even say that all these lifetimes, like the pearls bound by the single thread, are different scenes in one great lifetime. And then I ask, who's the author? Because that's where I'm really going here. Is I want to know my soul, and I want to know myself behind the scenes of my particular role that I'm in. I want to wake up from this lifetime, and I want to be connected to the higher level of who I am. But more than anything else, and in order to really do that, I have to ask, who is the author? And why he made me play this role, and why he gave me these potentials and these limitations. So that like, it's a whole paradigm shift to see it like this. And that's how I think the Torah wants to teach us to try and see our lives, and to ask these questions. And to nobody's going to answer us. I mean, there is this thing of going to tzaddikim and saying, like, who am I? What's my life about? Why did I do this? Why did I get... You know, the tzaddikim usually smile. What are they going to say? Even if they know, you know. Hi, Rav Shalom. Just smile, because that's part of us. What's part of our journey is to discover this as we go. Oh, I mean, of course we want to know who we are and which souls we're connected to. But for me personally, I don't know who they are, but I know who I feel connected to, and that's already important. And it's up to me to make that a real thing in my life. So bless us all that we can do that. But then story becomes a twinkle in the eye of the author. Stories that don't have ends, stories that don't make sense, the characters don't fit, this and that. All these things are new. Do you see what I'm trying to tell you? And we say, no, we don't understand. Give us some hints. So, Baruch Hashem, we live in a later generation. We have had the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and we've had the Ari, and we've had Rabbi Nachman, and we've had the Baal Shem Tov, and we've had the Or HaChaim, and all these, and the Ramchal, and they just went crazy on this stuff. They wanted to know the story behind the story, and they were given these insights, and then that's so important that when we read them, then we can go back into the Gemara, into the Midrash, and into the Tanakh, and start to understand a little bit of how they understood it, and get our personal connection. Please, let's share whatever you want to share, and then we'll do our first meditation. What do you think about what we just said here? Or do you just want to breathe into it? Whatever you do, please feel free to. Let's make this a real class, the real thing. Don't hesitate to say anything if you want to say.
Hashem clothing himself in our stories. Could you just explain a little more about that? What is that? Beautiful description. What does that mean?
There's a line in Lecha Dodi. Hitnari me'afar kumi. Rise up, shake off the dust. The pshat of the pasuk is Yeshayahu is talking to Yerushalayim. On deeper level, is talking to the Shekhinah. But let's say Yerushalayim first. Hitnari, the hitna'er is to shake off me'afar, the dust. Kumi, shake off the dust of exile, the dust of foreign rulers. Rise up, Yerushalayim. Libshi, big day, tifartech ami. Now it's talking to Yerushalayim, and it's saying to her, Libshi, dress up in the big day, tifartech, your clothing of splendor, ami. Who's the clothing of splendor of Yerushalayim? Who clothes her? When we live here, we're clothing Yerushalayim. We become her garments. So then, on that other level, what's the Shekhinah is we become, is what we said before. But your question is more specific about how do we understand how God is in our lives? So for sure, the Torah, the Bible, stands out as a book that speaks about God as part of the story. There's a scene in Shmuel, in Sefer Shmuel, where we lose a battle. And the immediate response is Hashem Hashem sees something not befitting in us. That's why we lost. We didn't lose because we didn't have enough battle guns, we didn't have enough armor, we didn't have enough tanks. That's not why we lost. The Torah, the Bible immediately goes to that level, right? It's a newspaper reporter, but it's the divine newspaper reporter, and it's teaching us over and over again: don't see God as separate, don't see God as so transcendent that He's not involved. See that the divine is involved in every aspect, and He's the one who creates history and the one who runs history and who's involved with us. So that's like a basic teaching. I think you're asking something else, but that's what I see so far. You want to sharpen it a little bit.
I guess our story's clothing Hashem is almost like sounds like we're having an influence, or we're adding to Hashem somehow. How does that? I think someone we wear clothes because we have a need for clothes. So how does that?
Okay, interesting. Interesting. So I was having a conversation on Shavuot at the Kotel towards the end of the day when it was just Am Yisrael, people walking around. It was getting cooler. It was very delightful, and it wasn't dark yet, and we weren't davening Marav yet. It was just. So I sat down to my cousins who were here for a bar mitzvah. Let's close our eyes. We're just sitting on one of the railings, near the kotel. Let's close our eyes, because when your eyes are open, you can't really see the kotel. You can't really experience the kotel. You have to experience audio, not visual. You go into your inner world, and you experience it from there, and you hear the sounds. The sights are so many and so fast moving, and there's so many people. It's hard. Maybe after you come out, you can have transformed vision, but in the meantime, close our eyes. And we're told that this is the heart of the world. This is where the temple was. This is where the Shekhinah is. How do we feel the Shekhinah? Not a simple question. My answer is to feel the miracle of my life, the miracle of my existence. Have memories, tiny little memories, fleeting in and fleeting out, but just really the deep inner sensing that I'm not here by chance, that something has led me here, that something is guiding me. Feeling myself as part of something great. So, and then they asked me, is the Shekhinah part of Hashem or an aspect of Hashem? I said, no, I don't think we should talk like that. The Ramchal coined the word hanhagot, a hanhaga, which I translate as a mode or a modality, a modulation, a frequency modulation of God's holiness, of His light. But we don't say an aspect of God as opposed to another aspect of God. It's a frequency with which He interacts with us, and it can go up and it can go down. In a certain way, we say that God is interactive in such a way that we make a difference in the way He runs the world. And that's a specific Torah idea where it says, for instance, in many places it says in the Shema, V'hayayim Shema Tishme'u El Masvotai Asher Anochi Mitzaveh Etchem Hayom V'ahavai et Adonai Elohechem U'ovdo b'chol levavchem u'b'chol nafshechem v'natatim et ha'aretz ve'ito. If you act in the right way and you really connect with me, I'm going to give you your rain. And rain is physical rain, and rain is also shefa. And also in B'chukotai telechu, v'natati gishmechem be'itam. If you walk in my statutes, if you align yourself with my spiritual laws, v'natati gishmechem be'itam, I'll give you your rains in their times. I will conform the physical laws of the world to your needs. It's not a manipulation, it's not magic. You align yourself to my will, you connect to me, and I'll make the world run in a different way. It'll still be hidden because I don't like to be too revealed, but you'll see clearly that I'm there behind the scenes. So there is a real strong thing in Judaism that we make a difference in the way Hashem runs the world. Do we make a difference in God Himself? So the farthest they'll go in that is two steps. One is that in most Kabbalistic treatments, there's an expression called avodah tzorach gavoah, that human avodah is necessary for gavoah, for heaven, for up above. And they really speak a lot about this and how it works. And wow, you mean what I do is important to make the world run, and the upper worlds especially. Wow. The Nefesh HaChaim is based on this, like the whole Nefesh HaChaim of Chaim Volozhin. It has to be taken with a grain of salt. But it's there. We talk about it. Rav Kook goes as far as to say in his sefer called or Orach Kodesh. He has a chapter called Shleimut v'Hishtalmut, or Hishtalmut and Shleimut. Shleimut is perfection. God is perfection, and yet, if we're very careful, the way we think about it, that the reason that He created the world and created us in the world, is that He can become even more perfect than He is, which is like a dangerous thing normally to say. What possible effect do we have on God? But Rav Kook is willing to say that that even though God doesn't change and He's ubiquitous and He's the unchanging one, because He doesn't exist because He's deeper than existence and because He can be there and you can't detect it, but that doesn't mean He isn't there. He's there. It is. He is the is. But somehow He's even willing to go and say that we make a difference in that level. So it's all done with humility. And then the other side of it is we make a difference in the way He runs the world, as I said before, but not in Him. Of how He unfolds His plan. There's a verse in Yeshaya. I know I keep going on, please forgive me. Yeshaya, and the end of Yeshaya Samech, the last verse. Akaton yele elef, v'atzair legoy atzum. Ani Adonai be'ita achishena. The small one will become 1,000. It's like very symbolic. He who is small will become very big. And then almost the same idea. V'atzair, and the young one, legoy atzum, will become a mighty nation. Ani Hashem, I Hashem, be'ita, in its time, achishena, I will accelerate it. So it's talking about the Geula, and that Hashem will bring this about, that the small one will become great. The symbolism is very profound. The Gra goes a lot into this. This is almost like the Gra took the teachings of the Ari and put them into history, and how to use the teachings of the Ari to accelerate history. And so this is a major verse for the Gra. He was interested, like as much as the Baal Shem Tov. They were all interested in all aspects, but the Baal Shem Tov was neshama, was nefesh. How do we see the divine in ourselves? The Gra was history, meta-history. And not only how to explain history like the Ramchal, but how to make history move forward in a very powerful way. So this verse of the Tza'ir, which is Zeir Anpin, which is Mashiach ben Yosef, Yele Elef, will grow up in 999 steps. He constantly talks about the Tatztat, the 999 incremental steps of the Messianic process. And he'll grow up to the great 1,000, which is like getting to the 50 after you've counted 49. The 50 is as far away as 1 is to 49. The 50 is something we can't attain on our own. We can only work within the 999, the 999 of history, the incremental steps, the hidden steps where man has to do the work and know that God is there, but He's hidden, until the great revelation of the great 1,000. And that process will be be'ita achishena. So the Gemara says it'll happen, if we're worthy, it'll happen quickly. If not, it'll happen in its time. The Gra said it's a mixture. It'll be, even though it has to happen in its time, we've passed the time when history could have jumped to the very end and just passed over all the stuff that we're going through now. We're not worthy of a pure achishena, of a jump start to the end. But what will happen was that we'll have to go to the end, but things will get faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, and things will happen overnight that took years and centuries before. So the be'ita achishena is welded into in its time will be hastened. Why did I bring this up? Is that the Gra is saying that we are past the time of the possibility of pure achishena, which the Gemara speaks about as the either or. If we are worthy, we'll have achishena, and we can jump over whatever difficult issues have to happen. We'll jump over them. The redemption will come in a miraculous way. The other way is is spoken about as a poor man riding on a donkey. The slow historical backwards, forwards. Everything gets ruined, start again. Everything gets ruined again, start again. And you lose it, and you don't know that if God is with you anymore. That's the process called the 999. So he says that we're past, by the time of 1740 when he was alive, we've passed the pure Achishena, but we are in the period of Achishena de Be'ita. We're in the Be'ita period, but there's a sub-mode within Be'ita, it'll happen in its time as Achishena. And so he's working with the idea of how much effect do we have. We can't have an effect. And at a certain point, we've lost Achishena. We cannot have it. It's out of the question. Maybe it's still in the question if something really awesome could happen, but more or less, the natural process is going to take over. But within the natural process, God is there, and he's still interacting with us. So I've just gone, I mean, it's ridiculous to go on anymore, please. But I wanted to flesh it out somewhat, that it's a big thing in Torah of the interaction between the divine and man. And that the highest level of human beings is to accept the divine within us, to have it flow through us, that we should be channels and conduits of the divine. There's no greater privilege, there's no greater joy than Hashem should work through us, and we should all feel that energy. That the very energy of our life is Hashem, and call it by its right name. So, again, let's open up. We tried to deal with the idea of, does God need us to, if clothing is necessary for a person, that would mean that we are necessary to God. And so I tried to give a few different places in there. To feel your oats, you bow down. I surrender. I surrender my lusts, my emotions, how I feel about things, and even my head. And Hashem says, get up, rise up. Baruch atah on Hashem, which is He who gives existence. He says, I want you to exist. I want you to stand strong. I want you to walk strong. I want you to be there to embody me in the world, like Avram embodied my presence. So you don't have to always be afraid to do anything. You move with the sense that Hashem is with me, I'm doing my best, and I will be blessed to be able to do things, that are proper, that are right. And if I make a mistake, I'll admit it, and I'll try and fix it. So he wants us to be in a beautiful song with him, of a frequency, resonance. If I'm too afraid to do anything, or if I'm too egotistical, right? Those are the two extremes, both not good. But to ask Hashem to be able to embody His presence, and to believe that it can actually be, and to believe that that's what He wants from us in my thinking process, my speech, my actions. So let's just breathe into that. I mean, give it a little time. Smoke in the air. That's all we need. But let's breathe. Let's internalize. Write anything you want to write. Think anything you want to think. But keep focused on that one thing of Hashem being in our life, in your life, in my life. And ask for more of that. Connect to the source, and to bring more of the source down into your being, from your head down to your heart, from your heart down to your kishkas. There's a Siman Tzadik Chet 98 in Shulchan Aruch. It comes from Tzadik Chet in the Torah, and before that it comes from more ancient sources, that the Hasidim Rishonim, the masters, would meditate for an hour before prayer, then pray for an hour, then meditate for an hour afterwards, and they'd meditate for an hour until they got to Hitpashtut HaGashmiut. So literally it means that they would divest from physicality. Psychologically it means that they would divest from their stories. Like Rabbi Nachman teaches in Torah 52, that Hitbodedut is about being mitboded, is being isolate myself with a capital S, from my story, from the emotions and from the physicality that I feel, until I can get into very subtle places in myself, and even that's not me, because that's just my garment. So becoming mitboded or mitpashet, mafshit, I divest. And then I try and stay in that place, which is not a place where I don't know who I am. Well, if that's not me, that's just my story. So what do I do? How do I exist? But we learned that we're more than our stories. Wow. But that we're given these stories so that we can come back down out of essence into form with more awesomeness in our stories. And then we can start taking the dysfunctional parts of our stories, our relationships with our parents and our wives and our husbands and our kids, and start doing tikkun. Because Hashem gave us these stories for a reason. So there is the going away, right, to India, so to speak, of Judaism, and there's the coming back into the America. My goodness. Yeah. But some of us have to do that, right? To be able to do that and to maintain the spiritual essence of Moshe Rabbeinu. I just heard about Yoshua, that Caleb and Yoshua both went into the land, but only Yoshua's name was changed from Hosea to Yoshua to protect him from the Atzat Meraglim, from the council of the Meraglim. Well, why didn't you change Caleb's name? Why didn't you give him a chance? Because Caleb went straight to Hebron, and he went to the Kivrei HaAvot. He went to Hebron where the Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, and Leah are, and he stayed there the whole time, while the others were going around all over the land, and Yeshua was with them. So in a sense, Caleb chose to get to a protected place where he wouldn't be influenced by the Meraglim. But Yeshua was involved with them in hearing what they were saying and not being influenced. And that, in order to give him the chizuk to be able to do that, to be involved with things that are not on your level, that are below your level, and not to lose your level, Hashem gives Yeshua an extra yud. So we all need that yud if we're going to go in places that are not what we would like to be. And sometimes we have to go to places where we don't want to be. But we want to keep our center. We want to keep our anchor in our essence, even when we go down into the depths. To create a center inside of ourselves, that Hashem is always there and that we're always connected to Him no matter what. Our I am. And so meditation is really getting to that place and staying there and making it a place that I can come back to, and that becomes familiar to me, and that I can really know that it's there, and that I can have access to it when I need it. It's a place inside of me, the Kodesh Kadoshim, the Holy of Holies. And it's usually much more healthy to identify it with my heart center. So breathe into your hearts. one of the things I'll hand you. Just keep reading, please. Is there's a website, an institute called HeartMath, HeartMath. You'll get something about it in a minute. And just one of the things it says is that to get coherence between the brain and the heart and between all the parts of the body is one of the techniques is breathing. Because breathing patterns modulate the heart's rhythm, it's possible to generate a coherent heart rhythm simply by breathing slowly and regularly at 10-second rhythm. 5 seconds on the in-breath and 5 seconds on the out-breath. So just do that for a little while in order to, with the intention of establishing a coherence throughout our system so that we can go to and understand like how to use this. Breathing rhythmically in this fashion can thus be a useful intervention to initiate a shift out of stressful emotional states into increased coherence. This type of cognitively directed paced breathing can require considerable mental effort and is difficult for some people to maintain. But it can be done. The other way around is when the heart's rhythm shifts into coherence as a result of a positive emotional shift, our breathing rhythm automatically synchronizes with the heart, thereby reinforcing and stabilizing the shift to system-wide coherence. So their whole thing is to activate positive emotion through the heart. It's an amazing thing that they're doing. And so the first two things on this page are a quote from one of their books, just to give an idea of what we have within us. The heart is the most powerful generator of electromagnetic energy in the human body, producing the largest rhythmic electromagnetic field of any of the body's organs. Then it separates electromagnetic into electrical and magnetic. The heart's electrical field is about 60 times greater in amplitude than the electrical activity generated by the brain. Now, I don't know what that means, but it's electrical activity 60 times the amount of the brain. It doesn't minimize the importance of the brain. The brain is supposed to work on when the heart is working as it's supposed to work and the brain synchronizes with it and vice versa, there's no question that they're both absolutely important. So I don't think that that's what they're getting to here. It could be that the brain works better on cool and the heart works better on hot. I'm not sure, but that's one possibility. So that's 60 times. And this field measured in the form of electrocardiogram can be detected anywhere on the surface of the body. And then furthermore, the magnetic field produced by the heart is more than 5,000 times greater in strength than the field generated by the brain. And can be detected a number of feet away from the body in all directions. So knowing this, when I was at the hotel or wherever I am now, I feel heart, and I feel other people's hearts, and I feel that all of our hearts are intermingled with each other. And if we become aware of this, that our real connection with each other is our heart, you can imagine it, you can visualize it, you can have a very powerful subliminal awareness of this. Remember, at Sinai, we stood as one man with one heart. Again, heart. We're one great heart. We're part of one great system. We're part of one great soul. It's just hidden from us. To love each other, to respect each other, to be with each other in deep communion is not something we have to create out of nothing. It's the reality down below what we experience as reality. It's the reality behind reality. It's the reality with a capital R. So meditation and prayer and Torah are supposed to bring us into closer proximity to that consciousness, so that when we open our eyes after meditating, after learning Torah, we see the world differently. And it goes on, the heart is the most powerful generator of rhythmic information patterns in the human body. As we saw earlier, it functions as sophisticated information encoding and processing center. It possesses a far more developed communication system with the brain than do most of the body's organs. With every beat, the heart not only pumps blood, but transmits complex patterns of neurological, hormonal, pressure, and electromagnetic information to the brain and throughout the body. As a critical nodal point in many of the body's interacting systems, the heart, it's like the center. The heart is uniquely positioned as a powerful entry point into the communication network that connects the body, mind, emotions, and spirit. So you have Asiya, Yitzira, Bria, and Atzilut. Body, mind. I would say body, emotions, mind, and spirit. Whatever. So over the last few months, it's just been much clearer to me that knowing anatomy and knowing a little bit more about the body from a spiritual perspective really helps. Being able to visualize our own spinal cord and our own brain and the electrical system that we are part of, inside of ourselves and outside. Just to use that as our focal point of concentration of the miracle of Hashem's, the way He created us. And that's so hidden for most of us. It becomes so, we take it so much for granted, and that the whole entry point into heaven is through our bodies. Is through the actual operations of our physical being. So Pashtuta Gashmiyut is getting out of my story, my emotions that I feel towards or against any particular person or event or whatever, and getting out of that. But where do I go? Into the temple of my own being. It's not some disembodied state. It's there. So these are interesting things. I offer them to you. Hope it was good. Take it, use it. Anybody want to share anything? Picture how you're going to go home and meet your kids and your wife, whatever. Go in wherever you need to go. Me too. I'm going to picture a lot of things going on in all of our lives. So giving a good spin to it all, and the expectations of good things. We all need this. as I bring in a 500-year-old manuscript, the chief rabbi of Jerusalem in 1509 gives all these things of how to move your body with the letters and concentrate and visualize and breathe. It's beautiful stuff. At one point towards the end of chapter 10, now in this highly sensitized state, close your eyes tightly. He goes into the real powerful thing, not just the easy flowing. All of them, they're all good. The whole spectrum. So he says, and close your hands with all your strength, with quaking and trembling. To the point that your entire body is shaking, your knees are hitting against one another. Now prolong your breath as long as you can. To the point where you can feel that you have no more strength in any of your external and internal limbs. וידביק את נפשו ומחשבתו ממדרגה למדרגה בעניינים הרוחניים ההם כפי מה שאפשר בכוחו לדבקה ולהעלותה למעלה מהעולם הגלגלים לעולם השכליים הנפרדים. Now elevate and connect and bind your nefesh and your consciousness from one level to the next of those spiritual levels to the maximum extent of your ability to bond and to elevate up and up from the astronomical to the spiritual, to the dimension of the supernal hidden Atzilut, to the point that you yourself become an active intellect with no sensation of anything physical, for you have departed from the human realm and entered the realm of the divine. Whatever you now say becomes reality. It's crazy stuff. So again, I don't necessarily want to leave my body, but I bring these things because I want to show what at least they were interested in, how they saw things, how they did their work, the inner work. So it's an open field for any kind of experimentation. Just when you know you're with Hashem and you're asking Hashem's help to be able to do this in the right way, in a way that's not going to hurt yourself or anybody else. To really prayerful meditation, meditative prayer. Okay. Hazak Baruch. In every way.